You are listening to the Sound Therapy Network podcast, where we talk about all things sound healing. This podcast is for practitioners and clients who want to learn more about this magical healing modality. Welcome to the Sound Therapy Network podcast. I am your host, Niajae, embodiment coach, owner of Bliss Wellness Studio in Tampa, Florida, and the creator of Somatic Sound Therapy. Today, I have a wonderful guest. Is James Lamar. He is Pennsylvania's traveling sound therapist, and I am so excited to chat with him. Welcome, James.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I've been listening to your podcast, so to now be able to hear my own voice on your podcast is going to be kind of strange, but but very much an honor. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And just speaking of your voice, like your voice is magical. So the first time I saw one of your videos, one of my friends, she's also a sound therapy practitioner, she sent me your video singing, and I was like, oh my God, who is this magical being? And I'm like, I have to have you on. So I want to know your story. What led you to sound? And then we'll dive a little bit deeper into some stuff. So tell the audience who you are and what led you to sound.
Absolutely. So, like she said, I am James Lamar, and I'm originally from Pennsylvania, more specifically Shamokin, Pennsylvania, which is this small town. It was very huge when coal was like the biggest energy source. So now it's not at all a very popular town. It's become kind of a ghost town, and surprisingly enough, it's like the number one most poverty rate in the state of Pennsylvania. So that's where I'm from. But I will say where my journey to sound came from is literally the very beginning. I'm told that my first words weren't even words, it was a melody. So I was singing the theme song to Barney, the I love you, you love me. So I guess music is just running through my blood. My mother, she sings pretty all right. You know, she's not a professional singer at all, but she has this love for music. I feel like I got the love of music from her. But my dad, he is a singer and has played in different rock bands. And although it's not the style of music that I currently sing or have ever really sung, I can see where I get the musical talents from. So yeah, I mean, I always knew I had this gift to sing. And when I was 13, I wrote and produced my first ever song and had dreams.
Yes.
Yeah, of becoming a recording artist. I was watching Making the Band on MTV and saw Danny Kane in the studio, and
Yes.
that was really like the driving force to be like, okay, yes, we're gonna go be a pop star now. So that's kind of where the journey took me, and I went to college. I went to Temple University in Philly, and my last semester, I had the opportunity to study. I don't want to say abroad. They called it study away because it was in Los Angeles. So I spent my last semester there and ended up staying in Los Angeles for 7 years. And this is where I was going hard, like really seeking out opportunities in the entertainment industry, not just for singing and music, but for like acting and being behind the scenes and just wanting to be a part of all of it. Um, but very much so, I think that music was the forefront of all of this. And even at that time when I was in LA, the music that I was making had a purpose, like a higher mission to use music, to use the lyrical content in music as a form of a mantra, as a way of releasing higher vibrations into the ethers, because we see that a lot of the music that's being pushed nowadays doesn't really have our best interests at heart. It's kind of perpetuating a lot of these lifestyles that we now know are not conducive to us. So just kind of seeing that, I wanted to be a part of the change. I always said I wanted to be the male version of India Ivory. Always,
Yes.
always been so inspired by India's music, her voice, but then just her lyrics. Like it's the messages. There's always a message. Even in the love song, there's like a powerful message behind it. So she's always been one of my top influences. And yeah, so I kind of like made my way through the music industry and just trials and tribulations and just so many snakes in this industry that will
Yeah.
take advantage of independent artists that have a dream and will take your money and then nothing happens of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've been through the ringer and just got so jaded. And while I was in Los Angeles, I learned about the horrors of the entertainment industry, the other side, right? Like, really, who's running the show? Um, and it scared the living crap out of me. Um, and especially with where I was at that time, I wanted to be this big influential person that could release these positive messages out into the universe. And it was kind of being told to me that, like, I'm not going to be able to do that, or I can only reach a certain level of success until I would have to become a part of these forces that are kind of running the show. And that's when I shifted. I shifted everything. I shifted my life holistically. Like, I adopted a plant-based lifestyle, which I do not say that that is the one and only way. I think you can be a spiritual meat eater. I do not judge at all. But that was just a part of my path, was, learning about like sustainability and the relationship we have to our food, and food is medicine. And I kind of went down that path and started working in the food industry, but more specifically, at like juice bars, smoothie shops, plant-based restaurants, these places that really were conscious of the menu and what they were offering the community. Um, but my love of music never died. I started writing a little bit more music that was more conscious driven. I mean, my music already was positive, but with this new scope of understanding of the world, I was writing from that place. And then I found sound baths and
Mm.
found sound healing. And I'm like, oh, word! Wait, there are instruments out there that actually can help to heal people. Um, so that, like, I was hooked, once
Mm-hmm.
I found out that it existed. I ended up going to a couple sound baths in Los Angeles, and I stumbled upon Shakti Sound Bath, who's run by Anna Natano. And in Los Angeles, she's like the number one sound bath person to go to. She does these mass sound baths, over 100 attendees, and she's got like 8 to 10 practitioners surrounding the perimeter of whatever space it is. So the way that I learned sound was like this big grand experience where we're all coming together and we're all playing our instruments together and creating this surround sound experience. And so yeah, I eventually got trained by Anna and started my journey into sound, and have since been doing sound baths around Los Angeles. And then I eventually moved back home to Pennsylvania, a little bit near my hometown. There was a vegan restaurant that was about half hour away from my hometown. So I came to work here, and I began to expand my sound therapy offerings, and ended up moving to Philly. So then I was able to expand it out in Philly. Then my sister died, which led me to
Oh,
Pittsburgh.
I'm
And then,
sorry.
no, it's all right. It happens. Hey, death is one of those things that we have to accept. But it was like a blessing in disguise. Her death led me to Pittsburgh to live with her side of the family, bond with them, but then also, as a part of that, made connections and brought sound offerings in Pittsburgh. So that's how I coined the term Pennsylvania's traveling sound therapist, because I've been able to travel the entire state from Pittsburgh to Philly, to offer sound and continue to find my voice and how I fit in this growing industry, which I don't know about you, but I feel like it's an ongoing process. Just when I think I know the path that I'm gonna take, something else comes into my consciousness, and I'm like, oh wait, okay, this is a way that I can evolve my practice. This is a way that I can implement this thing that obviously matters to me. So how can I now add this into the practice, and yeah, just finding my way. I'm very transparent about this. Like, I do not consider myself to be like a guru or, this master spiritual guide or anything. Like, I'm a human that loves music and have been given a gift and found these tools, and now want to use my gift and my musical abilities to help other people on their journey. And that's it. Like, I'm going through stuff too. We all going through stuff. But if we're incarnate in this physical form, we're not enlightened, because then we wouldn't be here anymore, right? Like, we're
Mm.
still in the journey. So I always try to be transparent about that. Like, I'm not trying to be your guide or nothing like that. I'm just here to share the gift and everything that the sound has to offer, which you so eloquently speak on this
Mm.
podcast. So I'm sure if y'all are listening to this now, you have been through all of these episodes, so you already know what sound can do.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So much I want to unpack there. So I totally resonate with your story. I used to sing. I also was obsessed with making the band and wanted to audition. And I mean, I loved Danity Kane. So totally resonate with all of that. And the industry is hard. And what you said about gurus, I think the people that we kind of idolized, like the wool is being removed from our eyes of how dark that industry can be, because I mean, look at what's happening with Diddy. So I think that there is a split that's happening where the shadows are being revealed and we're seeing what like really happens behind closed doors of a lot of these industries, and when people have and abuse power. And we're also seeing people share their magic where like more conscious music is being released. So we have, India Irie who's doing sound bowls now. We have Lundrell and Janae Aiko, and I mean the list goes on. So I think that there is a split where like the shadows are being revealed and people's light is also being revealed.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's a beautiful time for music right now. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah. And so when you discovered your first sound bath, how did you explain it? I remember my first sound bath and how I felt coming out of those first few sound baths, but I want to hear in your words like that experience for you.
Okay, so my experience was very interesting because the first ever sound bath that I went to was in a gym in Los Angeles, and it was an electric sound bath. So there were no live instrumentation. They were using digital instruments and things like of that nature.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't really like know what a sound bath was at all. I just knew the concept of like sound as a modality for healing. So I think I went there completely unprepared, didn't know that I needed a mat, didn't know I was going to be laying down. Um, and yeah, like I think that sound bath I didn't really resonate with. Um, like I didn't really like leave feeling anything profound. And maybe it was just like the choice of instrumentation or just kind of like not really knowing what to expect. Um, but yeah, so like that was my introduction. But then it was a while until I seeked or sought out sound baths again. Just because like not that it was a bad experience at all, but as I'm trying to go into my memory, like I can't even remember leaving and the feeling that I had afterwards.
Hmm.
I don't think it was profound enough to have like inspired me to continue, right? But I would say when I went to my next sound bath, that really resonated with me. Um, it was beautiful. It was one of those mass sound baths, and I found my spot in the room. There had to have been over 100 people there, and I saw this practitioner who was a Black woman. And due to my upbringing, like I feel most comfortable around Black women. I always have, even since school. So like I just naturally gravitated towards her and just started talking to her before the sound bath and just like, how did you get to do all of this? Tell me about your journey. So already I felt like I was being held in this sacred space because I was having this connection with someone who was doing what I might eventually want to be doing
Mhm.
after experiencing this type of sound bath with the live instrumentation. Um, and yeah, so I just remember, yep, just like shutting my eyes and the meditation. I think when she was introducing it, she said something that made me start to cry. So the beginning of the sound bath, like I had this thing launched in my throat because because of all the tears and everything that comes with the tears. So I remember like the first 10 to 15 minutes was very uncomfortable because I couldn't breathe properly. I think that's a
Mhm.
very important part of the sound bath. But once that passed and I was able to fully relax, I just remember thinking to myself, this is so cool. Like that's just that's the thought that continued to go through my mind because it was how do I say this respectfully? It was one of those sound baths where there were like a lot of instruments
Mhm.
being used, which some could say that that's good, some can say that that's distracting, right? I think that's a personal preference. And as sound baths are expanding, I think we're finding our niche for like what practitioners we resonate with more than others, right? But I just remember like these practitioners walking around the room with all these different instruments and hearing them above me and hearing them all around me and just like hearing their slight footsteps. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. Um, so I think that was more of my experience because it felt more like a sound journey rather than um, a way to truly regulate the nervous system, because I feel like because there were so many instruments and so many moving parts that it was almost too much happening that I couldn't really dive in. And I think also with my mind of being there to seek out if this is what I want to do, I think I didn't go with that intention of, oh, I'm here to just experience the sound bath. I'm like, no, I'm here to see if this is my calling or not, you know? So I was already going with this intention that I didn't really give my mind the space to quiet down because I'm just like thinking the whole time, like, whoa, this is so cool. That sounded amazing. Opening my eyes to be like, what sound was that? Um, but yeah, so I think for me, those first couple of sound baths, like the first one I already talked about, but that second one was kind of like the icing on the cake to be like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. So I ended up taking the certification with Anna, and the rest is history. But yeah, I would definitely say those were my first couple of experiences. What about you? Like, what was your first couple of experiences?
Yeah, I'm going to get back to that because there's a couple of things that I want to mention to the listeners. So, one of the questions that I have people ask me all the time is it the same listening online? Like, if you listen to a sound bath, like via YouTube or something like that. So, the way that I see it is that first sound bath you did, it's kind of like just listening to a recording versus like feeling the actual frequencies in person. So I say that you receive about 40 to 60% of the benefits if you're listening versus being in a room where the waves are actually getting into your cells and into your body. So you're receiving 100% of the benefits. So anyone listening that's like, can I just like listen to a meditation, like healing frequency at home? Yes, anything's better than nothing because we need all the tools these days, but you're only receiving about 40 to 60% of the benefits versus being in person with the actual instruments because those waves are healing on a cellular level. So if you can do a sound bath in person, definitely do so. But if you can't, anything is better than nothing. So I just wanted to mention that's probably why that first sound bath wasn't as resonant because they didn't have the actual instruments in person.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But thinking back on it, it's so interesting because I think also the instrument itself, the quality of it, the intention behind the practitioner, right? All of this goes into play because I remember recently I've done a virtual sound bath with the crystal alchemy bowls. And I think
Mm.
just because those are just like they're top of the line,
Mm-hmm.
that virtual session took me deeper than I've ever gone before. But again, I
Okay.
feel I feel like it was because of the alchemy bowls, and they had a really good setup to get all of the sounds. They probably just had the right mic, and I had hooked it up to a good speaker, so it wasn't just like crappy headphones or anything. So I feel like I was able to really dive deep and experience that state in between being asleep and being awake, like that
Yeah.
that deep theta.
I'm
Um,
going to play devil's advocate a little bit here. Do you think that because now you have your body trained to receive the vibration, you're in a different place to receive it on a deeper level now?
um,
And it,
I
it could be it could be both too, like a yes and like yes and alchemy bowls are also amazing.
right. Yes, and alchemy bowls are also amazing. um, but also, again, it's really based on the practitioner. The reason why I took this online class or this sound bath with this gentleman is because I've seen his content and how he plays, and he plays in such a musical way that like that's what I'm drawn to because that's the way that I play. So I'm very picky with who I go to or who I trust with the sound bath, at least with like the alchemy bowls. Like if they're playing all these notes that just don't go together and it's creating all this dissonance, and it's actually doing the opposite of what we want it to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, just the practitioner and what they're bringing to the table, like I said, their intention, but their musical knowledge and all of that, I think that really helped us as well. So yeah, I think yes and.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to mention, you did talk about how there are different types of sound baths. This is something that I talk about a lot. We have musical journeys because I've actually certified a lot of musicians that create like I like to call them like healing concerts. So you go to a concert to hear, live music and a performance. And so I think that it's important when people hear sound bath, they do a little bit more research on, is this a musical journey that's going to have a bunch of instruments and it's more like a concert or someone showing their music knowledge, or is this a healing sound bath designed to repair and regulate the nervous system? Because they are two totally different things, and both are great, but their purpose is different. So imagine you wanted to sign up for a yoga class because you needed some relaxation, you needed some gentleness, and then you go to a power hot yoga and you're like, well, this isn't what I signed up for, you know? So it's still yoga, but the purposes are different. Yin yoga versus like a power hot class. So just knowing what you're attending, and I think for any practitioners listening, explaining that to clients so they know what they're signing up for. And my business therapist always says clear is kind. So the clearer we can get on what our sound bath's purpose and intention is, the more the client will understand and leave because they're like, leave happy because they received what they came there for, versus it being like, this was a lot because I was looking for relaxation, or maybe they were looking for musicality and then it was simple. I keep my sound baths very simple, and I know some people are used to a bunch of instruments and really loud experiences, and then they come to mine and they're like, well, that was different. you know so
Right,
I
right.
think that but I do let people know for the purpose of nervous system repair. But if they're used to one thing and then they receive something different, I think that it's important as practitioners we start to differentiate the musical journeys from the nervous system repair healing sound baths. Our somatic sound therapy training and mentorship is your all in one guide. It offers trauma informed training, somatic training teaching you sequences for both one on one and group sessions, and offers business support. This mentorship is everything you need to start, maintain, and grow your sound therapy practice with safety protocols, true compassion, and integrity. The training is virtual and self-paced with a full year of support and accountability. Enroll today and step into your purpose as a trauma-informed somatic sound therapy practitioner. So there was another thing that I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if this is too personal, but you mentioned that your sister died. I've experienced a lot of practitioners really dive deep into sound to help them navigate grief. Do you feel like this practice was instrumental for you in processing your grief?
It's interesting. I actually feel like these instruments help me with my sister's transition more than my own grief. Like when I found out that she was getting ready to pass, like it was, you kind of get that call that there's nothing else that the doctors can do, right? So it's like, okay, this is this is just going to be a waiting game. So that was kind of um, it was I was guided to go to the hospital, bring my instruments and play to just at least have her transition as peaceful as possible. So it kind of awakened something in me. It's like, oh wow, like using these instruments as a form, like I guess what do they call it, like a death doula,
Mm-hmm.
or like helping people to transition in a more peaceful way with these sounds. Um, but as far as my own grief, yeah, I gotta say I don't know if I necessarily really used the sound for my own grief. You know,
Hmm.
I could have gotten benefits just like me playing, you know, for other people, because I think even us playing, although we are exerting the energy of playing and we're not in that full receiving mode, we're still getting some benefits from it. Um, but yeah, I think and a large part of this grieving process too for me was realizing that it wasn't as big because although she was my sister by blood, she wasn't really in my life
Hmm.
for most of it. You know, I have very, very, very few memories. Did it still hurt? Yes. But what I realized is that the family that I ended up going to live with in Pittsburgh that landed me over there is that they were the ones that were truly grieving because they experienced her on a day-to-day basis. So for me, it was almost like this calling to go and be a support for them. You know, just because of my knowledge, because of my energy, the fact that I literally look like her. So every time that they'd look at me, they'd see her. So it was kind of like, in a sense, like filling a void for a temporary time, but not really. Like that wasn't the intention, but it was more so just kind of just being there for support and helping them grieve. And even at the funeral, I played some singing bowls and, you know, let me
Hmm.
do some of that. So it was nice that they were open to some of these things, especially, you know, I think all of them are Christian. So, you know, a lot of times we see that people can be against these frequencies because they, you know, they don't come from necessarily Christianity. Um, so yeah, that would probably be my experience with that.
That was a very vulnerable share. I feel like there's a lot of people that sharing that is going to resonate. I know that there are sound practitioners that specialize in end of the life care and helping families grieve. So thank you for sharing that before I move on. Um, so you asked my experience with my first sound bath. My very first sound bath, I went into the deepest meditation I've ever experienced. And I came out of it and I was like, holy shit, what was that? Like, I need more. And I was going back to back as a client, like once or twice a week. And I just felt the layers peeling back. Like, I feel like we have so many layers of programming and self doubt and confusion and people pleasing and trauma adaptations. And I literally just felt another layer peeling back every single sound bath. And around that time, a certification was coming to town, and I was like, oh, I'm too busy. Like, I can't do this. But then I kept seeing it. And one of my friends was like, did you see this? You have to do it. So I felt like that was a nudge from the universe. Like, we're telling you, you're not getting it. So we're going to keep putting it in your face. And
Yes.
I did the certification, and it was more than I ever imagined because at the time I had only experienced the crystal bowls, but the certification actually specialized in the Himalayan bowls, which opened up a whole other world for me. And I feel like through that journey, I've gone through so many like death and rebirth processes, and it's just like transformed me as an individual. So, what would you say if you had to think back through the years of like when this first came into your life, the biggest transformation you feel coming from being around the frequencies all the time?
Honestly, I think it's really just been keeping this state of inner peace, like, you know, and being able to find my way back home.
Mm.
Um, and I feel like I hear singing bowls all the time. Like there will be frequencies that are obviously not a singing bowl, but I'll hear it as a singing bowl. Like I think because
Mm.
I've been around it so long, so it's like even in day-to-day life, you know, I hear them, even though it's not really them. So
Mm.
it helps me to just like ground and come back to center, come back home, come back to the breath, come back to the moment, right? And just using that sound, yeah, to come back home is the best way I can put it.
So this may be a little bit of an esoteric question, but do you think that what you're hearing is like a spiritual download, like clear audience? Like, is that a message, like your higher self communicating to you through these sounds?
Yeah, I mean, I never really thought of it that way, but you know, it's with everything that I'm learning about this life and this reality, like I definitely would not put it past my higher self or some other entity within or outside of myself that is trying to send a message through frequency, because frequency is all around us, right? And it's just my brain is hearing it as a singing bowl because I'm constantly surrounded by the frequencies now. And even when I'm not playing, like I love to play them on my phone and hear them a lot. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I believe that.
Yes. All right. So, if you had a message that you wanted to share with the world, like your intention as a practitioner and your purpose for doing this work, what would that message be? What do you want to say to the world?
Absolutely. Like take that time for stillness. Stillness is probably one of the most difficult things for us to do. You know, we think, oh, being still is easy. But like, you're still doing what though? Like, you're still sitting down on your phone. Okay. You're still sitting down watching a movie. Okay. But when are we still doing nothing? Or just listening to these frequencies that, it's not like a popular melody that we'll get hooked into and start like, grooving or, you know, um, so yeah, for me, it's the importance of stillness and what we can get in that stillness, the healing that comes from stillness, because in that state of rest, our body's natural healing systems are activated, right? The ability to create that openness, that open channel for the divine to come through in guidance in whatever way, whether that is guidance that you feel directly from source or guidance that you're feeling from your spirit guides, from your ancestors, right? I think so many things can come through in that stillness, but if we're constantly on the go or we're constantly having these distractions, it's more difficult and challenging for these messages to come through to us. I think yes, it can also happen while we're scrolling, like you said. You were not going to take this training class, but it kept popping up for you. So that was, sometimes I feel like messages can come through this way, even in our distractions, like our phones. So messages can come about. But I think stillness is the biggest thing. Just, I think everybody in this world deserves that time to be still and take inventory of what is going on within. Take that time to quiet the mind, to truly connect to the core of our being, outside of the labels that we put on ourselves, our interests, likes, dislikes, every experience that we've had up until now. Because, well, before all of these experiences, when we came out of the womb, that that observer, that consciousness existed then without all of those stories. So it's like coming back to that very true essence, that spirit, that soul within.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. Oh my goodness, I absolutely love hearing your story and where you're at and the evolution. And I'm just grateful that you share your magic with the world. If you haven't heard him sing, you have to go listen to one of his songs, one of his videos. So share with people how they can follow you online.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm on Instagram at iam.jameslamar. I'm also on Facebook on the same thing as well. My website is iamjameslamar.com, and I have some music on all platforms, so Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. You just search James Lamar, and yeah, there's not a lot out there just yet, but I know it's way early for the holiday season, but I do have a singing bowl version of Silent Night where I'm singing with the bowls. So that's something I'm really proud of and hoping to release more of. But that's where you can find me.
Awesome. I will have his links in the show notes so you can go check him out. And if you are a practitioner, we are about to record some exclusive content. So we're not done here just yet. If you are not part of the Sound Therapy Network membership, this is a great opportunity to join. We offer masterclasses, video series, exclusive content like what we're about to record here. So you can find the link for that in the show note. James, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Sound Therapy Network podcast. Edgar Cayce says, sound is the medicine of the future. The future is now. By listening and sharing this podcast, you are contributing to the wave of healing in the world and safety in the healing space.